So look at the ways that you could begin from the top down, perhaps. And sometimes you may want to switch this around. And with the various strategies I'm sharing this week, you might start with some of the other points that I'm about to get into here. But by looking at, again, what are the hypnotic components? The pattern interrupt. This is what the title serves the purpose as, to grab our attention and make us ask the question of what's that? How can I learn more? You know your business can change people's lives, but you don't yet have the right words to inspire them to take action. Imagine the changes you will create in your business as you tap into the secrets of ethical influence and positive persuasion to not only better serve your clients, but also to supercharge your financial freedom. I'm your host, Jason Linett, and welcome to the Hypnotic Language Hacks podcast. I help entrepreneurs and business owners just like you to close more premium sales. And no, this isn't about tricking or manipulating people, not at all. It's about helping your prospects to appropriately sell themselves into your products or services. Please hit subscribe and get all the episodes now at jasonlinett.com. One of the biggest challenges that people often face inside of their business is that when you drill it down, they actually solve a very specific problem. Yet the bigger challenge then becomes there's other people in the market that also solve the very same problem. And how many times perhaps have you had someone ask you, well, why should I go with you? How is what you do different than somebody else? And inside of this week's episode of Hypnotic Language Hacks, this is episode number 39, I'm going to give you some formulas to start to break that down and make it so someone else can now understand the value of what you do. Because if you ever can break something down in such a way that now it becomes easier, this is often that foot in the door to have someone look at their issue from an entirely different perspective. And at that point, it becomes even easier to sell the process. As always, you can go to the show notes at jasonlinett.com. Don't worry about the spelling. I own every misspelling and they all point to the right place. But once you're there, throw the extension of /39. That'll give you this week's episode, the video, the transcription, and help you to get out there and become even more successful with hypnotic influence for business. But first, check this out. Before we get started today, if you want to easily grab people's attention, naturally build authority, and organically have your prospects wanting more from you, even before you've made an offer, I've created a step-by-step program to help you to do just that. It's called Business Influence Systems. And this is your opportunity now to visit jasonlinett.com to get a free behind-the-scenes tour of the exact hypnotic persuasion strategies that you can ethically use to better start up or scale up your business. If you want a proven framework to boost your confidence, attract premium clients, and inspire more people to take action with you, get Business Influence Systems now at jasonlinett.com. Let's start to take all of this and bring it down into a few simple systems. And I'd even ask you for a few moments to go inside and ask yourself some questions. What are some of the bigger purchases that you've maybe made in recent months or even years? Now, this may be easier to do of something of more of an educational slant, but the truth is, a lot of this is also embedded inside of a larger purchase, whether it's a house, whether it's even a car, or some bigger type of physical product. You see, the first step of this is we want to use my terms, thingify the offer. So the benefit of this becomes, in hypnotic terms, we often refer to this as a concept of anchoring. Anchoring can also mean different things. But in this respect, what we're doing now is like a brand, like a catchphrase. We are now beginning to take exactly what we do and turn it into a thing. Thingify it as a very specific concept. Because the benefit now becomes is if you've now taken everything that it is you offer and put it into a bit of a box, they can see this now as a specific thing that now part of their mind can start to go inside and ask some questions around, can I actually now put this thing into use? Once again, confusing doesn't sell. If someone can take specifically what your offer is and understand the individual steps, the influential aspect of this now becomes is that as they review those steps, they start to now sell themselves further into exactly what your offer is going to be. So the easiest way to do this, practice what we preach. Let's take a moment and talk about my program. Business Influence Systems, which delivers how to use hypnotic influence for business. So if we were to stop right there, these are disconnected concepts, and I'll put myself briefly into an audience here that some of you might be inside of as well. So yes, there are a few people out there who are specifically looking at influential language patterns and how do you make use of those inside of marketing. There are people, I already know because we track the analytics on Google. Thank you for subscribing, by the way. There are people who are specifically looking out for this type of content. And that's one part of my audience that's clearly here. Meanwhile, there's another part of my audience, and I forget where I first heard this as a metaphor, and I absolutely love it. There's one type of audience that you might already have that they're already hungry. They're already looking for exactly what you have to offer. And now your task is to basically to demonstrate, hey, I've got something to satisfy that. The other part of the audience you also have, though, are people who you have to convince them that they're hungry before they'll ever eat. So some of you are in very, very specific markets where if it's not quite something that's a service, let's say we can turn into a commodity. Hey, I need to better handle my taxes. Let me hire an accountant. Hey, we're in a room right now that has an older light. We want to swap it out and put in a ceiling fan. It has that switch on the wall which controls the outlet over there, which I just hate those. And we just paid a bunch of electricians in our new home to switch over and just make the outlet hot. But that's a standard request, right? But then again, I've worked with people over the years in terms of my program or even my private consulting. Here's the one who designs outdoor kitchen spaces, which, yes, there may be an audience specifically looking for that. But then again, he may also want to create some marketing pieces. And by creating those marketing pieces, it's going to bring in an audience where now they realize, oh, that's a thing we can do. And now clearly he's the guy who can help you to satisfy that specific point. So this becomes that big benefit from the start of looking at what you do and one, perhaps coming up with, let's say for now, a working title. That as soon as you have a working title, as I like to say, this creates the universe in which you're now going to live. Once you create that universe, let's now take it and begin to craft perhaps a bit of a subtitle. This is where you could actually spend a little bit of time doing homework on imdb.com or old episodes of Rocky and Bullwinkle, specifically Peabody and Sherman. I should probably pause here and explain what the heck I'm actually talking about. There's a style of a title of a movie where here's the title and there's the subtitle. Most books follow this as a platform. Most movie sequels follow this as a platform. And yes, indeed, Peabody and Sherman, from the old Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoons, did this expertly. It's not Wall Street 2. No. The name of that movie was Wall Street 2, Money Never Sleeps. And yes, we all know the history of Die Hard. Was it Die Hard 2 or Die Harder? Die Hard with a Vengeance. Die Harderist. You get the idea here. The way that even here was Harry Potter 2, and then the subtitle, which of course now I am not remembering. The newer Ghostbusters movies, the one with Leslie Jones and Kate McKinnon and Melissa McCarthy, and I'm going to get all the names right. There's 4 of them. The newer Ghostbusters movie, I will remember it as soon as the episode wraps up. There was a subtitle to that. The name of my book, Work Smart Business. So a title can often serve the purpose of what we call hypnotically, a pattern interrupt. The goal of the pattern interrupt is to pique someone's curiosity. And once we've now piqued their curiosity, that's that what we call the opening wedge. That's the foot in the door where now there's a bit of a question that needs to be answered. So for my book, Work Smart Business, the subtitle was Lessons Learned from Hypnotizing 250,000 People and Building a $1 Million Brand. That's the satisfying response. Similar to that, Business Influence Systems. What's that? Here comes now the subtitle, Hypnotic Influence for Business. Part of the benefit of this now becomes, as you have a title and subtitle format, this starts to create some loops, this starts to create some openings, this starts to invite some curiosity in the mind of your person that you're now wishing to communicate with. Bit of a pro tip here, by the way. 2 emotional states of mind that if you can ever pique these in someone's thoughts, you've got the foot in the door. I've already given them to you. Imagination and curiosity. If you can craft that position where now you've opened up that sort of wedge and now you've created a position of curiosity or even fascination, that's the foot in the door to then continue the communication and keep presenting from there. So this is the origin of everything we're now starting to build in terms of, again, stand out, solve problems, and sell more. And I can reference people who I've done business, people who I've done trainings with over the years, though sometimes there is the formula of switching the sequence. Let's throw some applause at David Siteman Garland, who put out a course called Create Awesome Online Courses. Is there any confusion as to exactly what he offers and what he helps you to do? Pretty straightforward. But then again, here's Pete Vargas with Advance Your Reach. What's that? Well, then they explain here's what their system is in terms of helping people to get on stage to better grow their business. So look at the ways that you could begin from the top down, perhaps. And sometimes you may want to switch this around. And with the various strategies I'm sharing this week, you might start with some of the other points that I'm about to get into here. But by looking at, again, what are the hypnotic components? The pattern interrupt. This is what the title serves the purpose as, to grab our attention and make us ask the question of what's that? How can I learn more? Here comes the subtitle. This provides better clarity. The real meat of what I wanted to talk about here today. Oh, one more example, by the way. We can do this even inside of our program, because here's P90X. P90X from the Beachbody Company, a program I have now done at least 3 different times. P90X3, all the workouts were 30 minutes or less. And yes, indeed, the X is for extreme. It was a great gift to have that, by the way, as soon as the pandemic hit and gyms were closed. Now I'm back in one and back to an old routine once again. But P90X, inside of their program, presented an idea of muscle confusion. What's that? Well, your body gets used to the same exercises over time. This is often a reason why people may plateau, whether it's weight loss or if they're trying to increase strength. So when you get all of our DVDs, they would say, when you get all of our DVDs based on your goals, we're going to give you a calendar that tells you what sequence to watch all the videos. The sort of a hypnotic component that now satisfied, by the way, if you're tracking marketing history, they sold compliance, from my opinion, better than anyone else in the world. And they changed the market overnight, because it used to be you got the 1 or 2 videos and you had to watch Richard Simmons sweat to the same old oldies over and over. And now here was variety, and here was the reason why there was variety. And they did some amazing things in terms of audience engagement to bring people in. But it's where inside of that concept of that muscle confusion, now, here's how they stood out. Here's how they solved a problem. And there's no doubt as to why they sold a whole lot more of that program than most other products that had been in that market up until that time. So step 1, thingify the title. Step 2, break it down now in terms of a specific subtitle that serves as an explainer. Remember David Siteman Garland with Create Awesome Online Courses. Sometimes we can switch that sequence over. The exact thing, by the way, doesn't quite matter that I'm about to reference, but I did recently spend around $6,000 or $7,000 for some online training in a specific market that I'm working on entering again. And to their credit, I did not know the name of the product until I was actually inside of that. So these are all suggestions. As a hypnotist, I'm allowed to make suggestions, but it's really where the third point here. The third point here is now a place where recognize what you start with is maybe not where you're going to end up. The basic idea is going to be, you want to take what you do and thingify it even further. And spend some time on this, by the way, to now take your process, take your system, take the steps that you bring people through, and now see if there's a way you can build a framework of everything that the person's about to now go through as a proprietary system. Let me explain this concept here. Proprietary system, the way that we hired different contractors. We recently moved from Springfield, Virginia down to Orlando, Florida. And in talking with different companies about, we had an air purification system in the house in Virginia. We wanted one in Florida. And I'll call it out. The company that sold the process better is who we did business with. They were all pretty much in the same price point. This one was slightly higher, but as he explained, here are the 3 steps of what we do. When you break something down into a proprietary system, it becomes even more memorable. The benefit now is someone else can sell it. And we did a previous episode, by the way, all on can someone else sell what you do. That planted the seeds. I'm giving you more of the nuances here, by the way, in this week's episode. To take your process, to take what you do with people and break it down into a series of ideally 3 steps, maybe 4 if you have to. But remember, the rules were made to be broken because we all probably have a copy of the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You know? So there's always going to be exceptions to this, what's an example of this? Don't worry, I got one for you right now. Here's business influence systems, which is hypnotic influence for business. And hypnotic influence happens in 4 steps. Step 1 begins with emotional intelligence, because before we could ever influence someone else, we have to have that greater influence of ourselves and how we carry ourselves and how we respond to the world around us. Once we have that as now the foundation, now we can move into phase 2, which is calibration, the interactions we have with other people. But you can see now that we have that grounded state within us, we can now communicate with other people even better, even stronger, even more influentially. That's a word, right? And inside of that too, this is where you're going to learn the power of simply asking the right questions at the right time. Because it turns out some of you may already know concepts around rapport and building connections with people. But in terms of business, one of the things you need to understand is that people often make buying decisions emotionally. And then they come up with the logic and the ration after that to reinforce the emotional decisions that they've already made. So when you know how to ask the right questions at the right time to bring them into that emotional decision point of their thoughts, once we've done that, so much of the sales process now begins to write itself, which is why only at now phase 3 of the process, now we're into the specific hypnotic applications. This is where I'm peeling back the curtain and revealing to you the secrets of hypnotic influence for business in terms of the words and patterns that previously people in my industries would have used for creating miraculous change in a short amount of time, helping someone to quit smoking, helping someone to overcome a fear, helping someone to break through their own self-imposed barriers in a matter of maybe even at times 1 session. So by taking those same language patterns that were previously reserved for personal change and now bringing them into your business, well, think about the changes that's going to create in your bottom line and into your profits. But the bigger question now is what happens in phase 4, because what good are these specific words and patterns unless you know how to put them into use? Which is why the 4th and final phase of business influence systems is all about specific business applications. You're going to go out on Facebook Live or YouTube Live or Instagram Live. Here are the frameworks, and it's going to show you where to put this language pattern and where to put that language pattern. Here is the moment where you're about to put together some sort of webinar series and you've got to make the call to action. Here's exactly which language pattern to use before you ever make any offer. And I just want to highlight what's happening here, which, yes, you're welcome to join us. Head over to jasonlinett.com. At the top of the page, click the tab that says Business Influence Systems and watch that free on-demand presentation. It'll give you a bit of a preview even before you join the program. You'll also learn that there's a whole private community with regular interactions that help to elevate and strengthen the content. But I'm breaking this all down for you, not just for the sake of selling you into my program, though we've got raving fans all around the world already inside of it. But what I want you to hear from that example, and feel free to go back and rewind and listen to that segment again, and model the framework, trust the context, but, change the content, because that was not something I just made up. It's something that I have outlined. It's something that I have roadmapped. It's something that I've workshopped. And it's where even now, you're welcome to hop on a call with me if you want to chat about this for your business. Go to the website, exploreinfluence.com. That'll just redirect you over to a calendar application to pick a specific time and get on a call directly with me. It's by putting in those hours It's by workshopping that messaging. This is where now I can talk you through exactly what it is. Let me highlight one more bonus thing inside of this. This is what we teach inside of hypnotic copywriting, by the way, as an example. Bullet points. Feature so that, benefit so that, result. So don't tell your audience, let's say maybe you're a consultant. I know a lot of you are consultants out there in some form. We'll throw into that category accountants, personal trainers, contractors, even to some respect. And sometimes there's the promise that we'll record the session and you'll have it as a resource afterwards. So what? And I'm not saying so what as if that's not a good bonus to be offering. I say so what because you've now opened up a question as to why that's important. You're going to get video replays of all of our private calls. This is what I do with my accelerator, folks. You're going to get video replays of all of our calls. This way, as we're taking notes during the conversation, I'm often time-stamping some of my notes so you can go back and reference things and get greater clarification. And not to shoot myself in the foot in terms of my business, but here's someone I worked with a few years ago. We went through a consulting process to help him to launch a new part of his business. Got it up and running. Got it systematized, which is a big focus of what I teach. Once he did that, he went through and he rewatched all of our private consulting calls all over again. And he goes, and I listened to your advice. I listened to our troubleshooting, but he goes, I ignored myself. This is him talking now. He goes, I ignored myself. And instead, in my mind, I was thinking about the new project. So he goes, Jason, I ran your entire accelerator process a second time without you. And I launched another program. Yes, I could go, oh no, I was out this amount of money. I just love that for the story. Again, looking at the systems inside of work, as we say, frameworks equal freedom. So look at that nuance of, again, you heard the premise of my product, and I share that with you as well to rewind back and model some of the language that's inside of that. You'll see greater breakthroughs inside the program, of course. But by looking at that nuance of, here's what step 1 does, here's what step 2 does, here's what step 3 does. And in an ideal world, I prefer you get your proprietary system down to 3 steps. Mine, I at one point was presenting it to say it's 3 steps, and as a bonus, you get that. But this brings about another point, which is to say, if you can sell the transitions, if you can sell transitions, you sell the need. Because quite openly, any of these individual segments of my program could stand alone on their own. And excuse me while I pat on the back jokingly, they'd be great on their own. But this is business influence systems. So the system is now, how do you put it all together? So, I mean, I'll just hypothetically talk through a couple of examples here, which would be that, you know, someone's getting new carpet. You know, what we're going to do is we're going to come out, we do new carpet in a series of 3 steps. And as a warning, I am making this up on the fly. So let's see where this goes. We do the process of carpeting in 3 simple steps. Step 1, first of all, we come out and take a bit of a survey of what you have in your house right now and ask the important questions about what do you like about what you currently have, as well as, of course, what do you not like about it. Once we understand that, here comes step 2, where now that we've done that visit, that's where we do the measuring. In step 2, we're going to bring you into our factory, into our workshop, into our showroom. There's the word I was looking for. And now that you're in the showroom, we're going to have already pulled out a few examples that fit the criteria upon which you're making the decision. Of course, you're welcome to browse around the entire shop, and the showroom has everything in it. We've even got catalogs you can go through as well. Everything from the padding to the actual carpet. During that, you know, first step, that's where we're also finding out kids, pets, what are the things we have to work around. But in phase 2, this is where we've put down more carpet than you have, so we can make some educated decisions for you. But again, ultimately, it's always your decision. But it's at that meeting, that's where you make the actual choice. So then it's just a matter of scheduling so that then on day 3, part of our service is we're also a moving company. Or we've partnered with this moving company. You don't have to move anything around. We do ask that you tidy up, and we'll come in, we'll move around the furniture, we'll get the carpet down, and you'll be able to walk into your home that night and have the floor you've already decided. This is the same basic journey that anyone who would have to get carpeting done, and I say this as they're putting down new carpet in our home on Monday, this is the process. But the real benefit is now you've broken it down into a 3-step journey. You have sold the story, you have sold the journey, you have sold the universe of what they're about to go through. Because you know, when it comes to eating better, here's how we're going to work together. Because I need to see that, first of all, that you're coachable, that you and I both know there's people out there who get into some sort of fitness plan and just kind of give up on it in a matter of 2 or 3 days. So in the first phase of this, there's some embedded change patterns, by the way, inside of what I'm about to say. So if you have any health-related goals, listen from 2 parts of the mind. In the first phase of this, it's not that I'm going to ask you to change how you're eating now. It's instead, I want you to take a week before we even meet. And in that first week, I want you to log everything. In fact, you're going to have my personal cell phone number. You're allowed to have anything you want, but I want you to take a photo of it and text it to me before you eat it. Sometimes I don't respond right away, just as a heads up, but this way I can see an idea as to what we're working with. But it's then from that. Then we're going to get onto a diagnostic call. This will only take about 20 or 30 minutes, by the way, because phase 2 of this is the diagnostic, where I'm going to find out from you, how are your energy levels, how are you sleeping, what are your exact goals. But now that I have an idea in terms of what your current education is around nutrition, now I can better understand from that diagnostic, where the third phase is that I'm going to give you a custom program plus access to my videos that will teach you how to follow it even better. In fact, one of my good friends is named Jason Linett. He's an award-winning hypnotist, and this program also includes a session with him to better motivate the plan I'm going to give you. And let's go bonus on this one. And either 4th step, and then the bonus is we're going to recap in about 3 weeks' time to see how you are and check in on that 3-week basis. Again, to look at what I've just talked through, that kind of is a basic process of most nutritionists, health coaches, people in that industry. But what you've done now is you've broken it down into a proprietary process that now they can understand the steps of it. And here's the reality of this. Anyone else who's not breaking it down that easily clearly is not as high quality as you are. Clearly doesn't have a level of expertise that you have. So who would have thought about that? The reality is, if you can think your way through your process, and listen to what I've done here, by the way. There's been very little influential patterns in terms of clever closing strategies and objection crushers. I gave you the tour. I gave you the tour through the program, and by doing that, in the words of a friend of mine in the hypnotic industry, her name's Jess Marion, she says that describing the technique is doing the technique. So by describing you through the experience, the proprietary system, you are, let's use the term for this, future pacing yourself. You are mentally putting yourself into that story, and metaphorically and kind of literally, you are now trying on that journey. You are now selling yourself into what I have to offer. And also inside of that too, even better, you are seeing from these individual steps what you're currently missing out on, what gaps need to be filled in. So if you want to stand out, if you want to solve more problems, and if you want to sell more, here are the formulas to start to do it. You have been listening to the Hypnotic Language Hacks podcast with Jason Linett. Please stop everything and start exploring jasonlinett.com for even more business influence and persuasion resources. Make it a priority right now to subscribe to this program and listen to every episode, because the next one may reveal that one hypnotic influence secret to massively scale your success. Change your words, change your business, change your life. Get even more at jasonlinett.com.